This is Pete Feenstra on Monday the 7th of November. Talking to a great guitar player, very first time in London for years and years and years, Mr. Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Great to have you here, Kenny.
Thank you.
As I said, it's been a long time for the UK anyway. What took you so long?
You know, a lot.
Busy, I guess.
Yeah, well, a lot has happened in my life in the past several years. You know, I've become a father.
Yeah, congratulations.
3 kids in the past 4 years, and you know, a lot of stuff's been going on back there. But in all honesty, it's been too long, and we hope and we plan on not letting that much time go by before we come back again.
It was also a long time, of course, since you recorded a studio album, and we're here to talk about the new one, How I Go.
Yeah.
I know you did a blues, we'll talk about the blues project, we'll talk about the Live in Chicago album, both of which are great. But was it always planned that you'd have a kind of gap before you came back to recording long?
Well, it wasn't necessarily...
Like the studio, I should say.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily planned that way, but it just kind of worked out that way. We had lots of interesting opportunities and things that we could do, like the 10 Days Out Blues documentary that we did, and then the Live in Chicago album, and you know, the time frame just happened the way that it happened.
Yeah. Now, when you were going back to the beginning, when you were 7, of course, your dad introduced you to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Was that the moment when you were inspired to pick up the guitar, or were you already playing before that?
Well, I was already interested in the guitar.
Right.
I had lots of toy guitars that I would like with actual strings, but you know, not a real solid wooden guitar. You know.
Yeah, guitar kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but after I met him, I was just blown away, and I was so inspired to actually learn to play the instrument.
Was that the first kind of gig you attended as well?
No, actually, I've been going to concerts since the day I was born because my dad was doing concert promotion and he was in radio. So we went to every. I mean, I saw Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker when I was 3 years old. So, yeah, I've been.
You remember that?
No, I don't. But he tells me about it.
Yeah. So when you were 13, Ryan Lee got you on stage in New Orleans. I mean, when you were 13 and presumably playing by then, did you have a problem finding people your own age who were interested in that kind of music?
Absolutely. I mean, even people that were older than me, I was having a hard time getting them to take me seriously because I was so young.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But most of my friends were not into the blues, so I was kind of, you know, all alone in that regard.
Yeah.
But I love the blues, and Brian gave me that first opportunity to get on stage, and that's when I felt like, man, I might be able to really do something with it.
And you cut Better Heights when you were about 16. I mean, were you surprised at how successful that was, that point of your career?
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't know. You never know what to expect. Every time you put a record out, you don't know if the people are going to love it as much as you do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you know, I'm pleasantly surprised. I mean, in the United States, it did very well. The first single went to the top 5 on the rock charts there, and within a matter of months, the album had sold over 500,000 copies. It went gold, and now it's a platinum album.
But over here, you see, everybody was waiting for something like that. In the States, it's more difficult to gauge because there's a whole bunch of people out there doing that all the time. But I mean, the songs, your performance, I guess how old you were at the time, all came together.
It did, and it was interesting because, you know, first of all, my age was kind of against me. I was a young guy. I was doing this kind of music. Nobody had really come along since Stevie Ray Vaughan had died, and so I thought I had more against me than I had more going for me. But
how wrong can you be?
Yeah, I guess so.
And you've also said, of course, that you kind of try to find a middle way between rock and blues, and I guess your discography suggests that because you started off kind of rock blues, brought out a rock album a few years back, and then did the blues project, and then now here we are with another kind of straight down the middle kind of the new album.
Yeah.
I mean, were you trying to redress an artistic balance in that respect?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I always like to do something unexpected with each record. I don't want to be too predictable.
Doing the same thing again.
Yeah, so you know, that's why we went with the straight ahead rock album, and then followed by the traditional blues record and the documentary, and then we did the live record. So I like to keep things interesting and fresh, and kind of keep people not knowing what to expect. But now I felt like it was appropriate to get right back to the middle ground between blues and rock, which is what I think people really expect to hear from us.
Yeah, and the songs certainly lend themselves to that. Was that a feature when you worked on it? You thought this is what you're aiming for?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the interesting things about the new album is, of course, is that you sing really well on 2 tracks. Yeah. Really well, lead vocals, but the interesting thing on there is the harmony singing that you're doing with Noel, and the background singing. Was that something you paid particular attention to?
Well, you know, when I did the 4th record, The Place You're In, which was the rock album, I sang most of the lead vocals on that record, and so that's what really got me focusing on my vocals. And you know, but to be in all honesty, it's like I'm a guitar player. I love to play guitar, and I could just play guitar all day long and be happy with that. But on this album, I thought it was a nice opportunity to strike a good balance. So Noah is featured as the lead vocalist on most of the songs, but even on those songs where he's the featured lead vocalist, I have a primary vocal part in the song, whether it's a co-lead vocal like on the song Butterfly, or you know, like a very prominent harmony vocal part like on Come On Over or something.
And talking about Butterfly, that's actually a bonus track, and I'm wondering why that wasn't on the original album, because it's such a great track.
Well, did
it fit the session, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why it's part of the, you know, special edition. But you know, we had to make decisions on what was going to be on the standard record and what was going to be on the bonus edition. And you know, we have a lot of great material for this record, and I mean, evidence is that there's 17 songs on the special edition. You know?
And some time back, you did a whole bunch of recordings. I think you cut 21 songs. Are any of these songs from that session you did a while back?
Well, actually, every time I do a record, I usually walk in the studio with about 30 songs.
Yeah.
And as we record, the best tend to rise to the surface. So, actually, one of these songs, "Dark Side of Love," was written for the second album, The Trouble Is, and we recorded and we finished it, but it just didn't make the cut on that record, so we brought it up for this album.
And Dark Side of Love is one of a number of songs that either are full of messages, or they're relationship songs, or you've got love songs on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess lyrics are becoming ever more important to you now as well as guitar playing.
Well, they always have been. I mean, you look at all of my records, I mean, even the first album, like Deja Voodoo, it's like the lyrics, the melody, the vocals play a very important role in the music that I write. You know, I grew up with a dad that was on the radio. So I'm always kind of conscious of that, because you grow up listening to these radio songs.
And when you write songs, do you start with the riffs and the grooves and stuff like that?
Yeah, usually. It starts with the music first.
That's understandable. Guitar player. You've been with Noel something like 14 years now. I mean, when it comes to writing the songs, are you aware of the fact? You're obviously aware of the fact he's got a baritone voice, but do you write to that strength?
Well, you know, we just tend to write the songs, and then we see. When we go into the studio, we see who's the most appropriate person to sing it, whether it's him or me.
Yeah.
And whoever, you know, like on the two songs that I sang lead vocals on, my voice I felt just was more appropriate for those particular songs.
Going to the album in particular, Who's Gonna Catch You Now and Cold, they're both very commercial, both radio friendly.
Yeah.
In fact, Who's Gonna Catch You Now could almost be a boy song. I should say.
Yeah, it's got lots of great harmonies on it.
Well, was there a feel that you wanted to have a couple of songs on there that would give you that crossover thing onto the radio?
Well, you know, like I said, radio has just been a part of my life since I was born, so it finds its way into my music.
And just speaking generally for a moment, have you found as you've grown older that you are becoming more song-oriented and less guitar?
Well, you know, I wouldn't say that, because everything I do, the foundation of every song is the music, and the guitar is the driving force of all of it. And it's not to say that maybe in the future the next album could be a very guitar-heavy record.
Yeah. Thinking about producer Jerry Harrison, I mean, not many people realise that he started out with the blues, of course, but the rest of his career has been with some pretty far-left bands. How did you establish a relationship with him, and how did he bring it into the kind of blues arena, rock blues arena?
Yeah, well, you know, I met Jerry years ago when we were getting ready to do the second album, The Trouble Is record, and I was introduced to him, and at first I was a little skeptical too, but we had dinner and we met and we talked very extensively, and I realized the blues background that he has. His first band was a blues band. He's a huge fan of the blues, and he has a very complex understanding, I think, of where I'm coming from as an artist and what my music should sound like, and all of the influences that I have.
And when you actually cut a track on the album, do you ever come together as a band in the studio, or do you do it all separately?
Oh no, we do it. We do it all in the studio.
And you do a few overdubs afterwards?
Yeah, but we try and keep the overdubs to a minimum, because the essence of this band is the live performance. You know, so absolutely. I try and make the album sound as live as possible.
And Never Looking Back, the first track is exactly that. It's got a kind of Stonesy riff. Was that a restatement of you going back to your rock roots in a way, because it is a very rocky song?
Yeah, well, it's again, it's just, you know, I think that was a great opening track for the record, and you know, it definitely shows some of my rock influences, but again, you can hear plenty of the blues influences as well.
And Come On Over, the second track, is probably your most unique song. I mean, it's something that's going to be defined as being Kenny Wayne Shepherd. You also made a video for it. Was it going to be a lead track on the album at one point?
Well, Come On Over is actually, right now in the States, we just begin to service that song to radio, so it's the second single in the US right now.
Okay.
Very important.
So for people who haven't heard the album yet, you do an amazing version of Your Blues by the Beatles. How did you come back to probably the only blues song that the Beatles ever wrote?
Well, yeah, I believe it is the only blues song that the Beatles wrote, but you know, it was a song that caught my attention many years ago. I mean, I was familiar with the song, but for some reason I heard it on the radio one day driving down the road, and it just, all of a sudden I could hear my band playing that song. I could hear exactly how I would interpret that song, and I thought we could do a really great version of it. I think we did.
I think you did, yeah, and it's very live.
Yeah.
You know, which is the essence of the track. I mentioned Noel's baritone earlier on, and you sing yourself great lead vocal on Cold. There's one track. I'm just thinking, how do you decide between the two of you who's going to sing what?
Just you know, once the song begins to take shape, you can tell the direction it's going into. And Noah's voice, he has a lot more. You know, he's got a lot more of like a baritone sound to his voice, but also his inflections and his phrasing and stuff is a certain particular style, like a southern rock with some
real
blues influence. Yeah, and mine is a little more mainstream sounding, so it just kind of depends on the context of the material.
And of the three covers that you do on the album, you do a great version of "Oh Pretty Woman." But the curious thing, I'm going to ask you this: you said that you go to something like that and not pick the most obvious song by an artist, Albert King in this case, but surely you must have heard the Gary Moore version.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Which, you know, you're going to do it again, and I guess it's a great version. So.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I mean, cover songs are you know, usually you're not necessarily the first person to ever cover a song if it's been covered. You know.
And Anywhere the Wind, Anywhere the Wind Blows. Ripping solo on there. Was that done more or less live?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that song, you know, it's got a real infectious groove. I think
it really has.
It's got a really fat track, and I think the performance on it is wonderful.
And you got a great tone and a Robin Traff feel on that Heat of the Sun. Mm-hmm. Was that what you were aiming for? That kind of big tone and presence, really.
Yeah, big tone and, you know, kind of tasty licks with a couple of flurries thrown in for good measure.
And you got a great take in the studio there. And was Strut, which is the instrumental at the end, was that your homage to Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little tip of the hat. You know, he's been a big influence on me, and you know, on every record with him and other artists like Albert King and B.B. King, I always try to take one opportunity throughout each album to kind of really tip the hat to some of my bigger influences. And
of course, you're playing a Coco tonight. I guess you'll be playing a Hendrix one for people as well.
Absolutely.
And talking about Hendrix, you did the Hendrix tour with some amazing people. Was that a case of having to raise your game on the night? Did you feel like you had to play that a little bit harder? Or?
Well, you know, there's lots of really great players on that tour, and we've been talking.
Eric Johnson for one.
Yeah, Eric Johnson and Steve Vai and myself and Robert Randolph and Johnny Lang and all of these great players. And Joe Satriani did it one year in Bloody Guy. Yeah. So it's just been a tremendous amount of fun, and obviously Hendrix is one of the greatest guitar players ever, and his catalog of music is such a great catalog to choose from. But you know, everybody kind of leaves their ego at the door. There's a lot of camaraderie. Everybody's very friendly, and it doesn't seem like it's a competition.
No. But nonetheless, it's kind of...
Well, you definitely want to bring your A game when you're playing with guys.
For sure, not a problem for you. Not a problem. Two more questions. How I Go, the title. Quite a few artists, I don't know if you realise this, are now doing what you've done. Slightly different, but they don't actually take the type of a track on the album anymore. They just seem to pick it from a theme or a feel or a lyric. Is that a new trend that's going on?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, my first inclination was to go with another track name, and then my engineer, Eric Thorngren, you know, he used to work with the Talking Heads, and he said that's what David Byrne used to do with some of their album titles. So that's what we decided to do, and we looked within the actual songs themselves.
Okay, and then just for everybody out there who's going to see you live, hopefully, what can they expect in the show? Is it everything from the career so far?
Well, yeah, I was just actually trying to figure out what the set list was going to be tonight, you know. And
does it change?
Well, yeah, it changes depending on the mood of the band and also where we're at. So tonight, you know, I'm debating. In the States right now, we're doing half the show is from the new record right now. But here I was thinking, since it's been so long, we may want to bring back some of the older material, because there's songs that that our fans here have been listening to for many years and haven't had a chance to
And which
hear.
are the songs that you're bringing in from the new album?
Well, we're going to do Come On Over, we're going to do Your Blues for sure, we'll probably do Butterfly, we're going to do Never Looking Back, you know, there's going to be a good selection.
Okay, this has been Pete Feenstra having a wonderful time with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. It's been a blast. Thank you to Eric Harvey on the camera. Good afternoon.